Hey everybody, welcome to the webinar. Today we're here with Juniper to talk about their vSRX and VMX workloads on AWS. I'm Nick Matthews. I'm a solutions architect on the partner team, and I work with these guys to help them work with their product on AWS. So today we're going to go through a couple of the just sort of starter topics. For just a couple of housekeeping notes, if you came in over voice or IP audio, at any point you can go into your control panel in the upper right, change that into, you can dial in if you'd like. But otherwise, we're going to get started here. So, when we started talking about networking on AWS here, 1 second, the slide's not going. There we go. So a lot of you guys are probably pretty familiar with AWS, and we'll sort of tie in the networking concepts to some of the general reasons. So one of the big reasons why people come to AWS is just the scalability, right? In terms of if their data center is running out of capacity, or if they have too many users, or if they don't want to be in the game of operating data centers. It's nice to have the scale that AWS provides. So in that case, it also means that your network needs to be able to scale, and you have to be able to figure out, how do you make sure that your VPN and your bandwidth are managed along with your scale? If you're using things like elastic load balancing, how do you make sure that any sort of security appliances are also scaling with your requirements? From a security perspective, it's been interesting the last few years because we're seeing a lot of our customers start to say that they can be more secure on AWS than they can on premises. So it's also a sort of leading reason why people are coming into AWS. In this scenario, we'll be sort of evaluating the Juniper capabilities of what type of security stuff they can do on top of what typical AWS networking components do, which we'll also review. As well, it's really great on AWS because you can, what we like to say is go global in minutes, right? So we've got 14 different regions, and so I think about 46 availability zones. Those numbers keep changing the whole time. I have to admit, it's hard to keep up with. And so from a networking perspective, that's also really important, because if you want your network to be all over the world, and we've sort of been public about our global backbone connectivity and the thousands of fibers that we own going all over the place, it's really great to be able to leverage that for your applications. And so we'll also take a look at sort of how would you create VPNs, direct connects, and other type of networking circuits into our network, so you can leverage that for your applications. As well, it's also great that especially if you come, I come from a networking infrastructure background. We have to sort of get our crystal ball out and figure out how many gigabits or megabits of bandwidth are we going to need in the next 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 6 years, and build a sort of network infrastructure for that. And we don't have to do that anymore on AWS, right? You're only going to use for what you're only pay for what you use. So that makes it a lot simpler whenever you have to do sort of build outs and a number of different sort of application architectures for your network. So if we take a look at the different network offerings that we have on AWS, there's a couple of core building blocks that we'll review here. So Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, or VPC, is sort of your virtual data center on AWS. If you want to connect in your sort of on-premises hardwired network, either through something like MPLS, VPLS, or dark fiber, AWS Direct Connect allows you to bring in your on-premises network directly into AWS. As well, we have the Amazon Elastic Load Balancing, which are a load balancing service that scales out horizontally to keep up with your application requirements and does things like health checking. And Amazon Route 53 is our DNS option. If you take a look at sort of the hierarchy of the networking in AWS, this is what it looks like. So I'll start with availability zone. So availability zone is most like a data center on premises. Our availability zones may be one or more data centers, quite often are. Availability zone for us means it's a set of buildings and resources that don't share fault tolerance with anything else. So this means that we put these availability zones in a region. So a region may have 2 or more. We'll always have at least 2, but it might have 3 or 4 or 5, like US East 1 has 5 different availability zones. The availability zones means they don't share a fault domain, they're not the same floodplain, they don't share the same power resources. So from an application perspective, if you put your applications in 2 different AZs, you've got fault tolerance, which is what we want to help you build on AWS. Once you've sort of you've chose your region, your AZ, you're going to build your VPC or your virtual private cloud, and this is the basis of your networking on AWS. Your VPC is going to live in one of your regions. If you're in multiple regions, you'll have multiple VPCs. As well, if you have multiple accounts, you will also have multiple VPCs. So we can also, sort of help you with the segmentation perspective of how many VPCs and how many accounts you want and whatnot. Within the VPC, this is, if you're familiar with networking, this is where things start to sound a lot more familiar. So you can create your own subnets within your VPCs. Each of those subnets will have its own routing table where you can create routing policy that will allow you to create things like private subnets, public subnets, semi-private or semi-public subnets that might only allow access back on premises or maybe one-way communication out to the internet with a NAT gateway. And to secure these even more, you can use topics like network ACL. So the network ACL will allow you to do stateless filtering for whitelist and blacklist for a subnet. So for instance, if you wanted to block maybe an entire CIDR range of maybe an attack coming in, or maybe you just only want to whitelist maybe on premises to a certain entire subnet. That's a good way to do it with network ACL. Security group is it covers the bulk of security control on AWS from a networking perspective. So that's where you can whitelist ports and protocols and sources and destinations on a per instance basis. If we take a look at a little bit deeper into VPC and what that actually is, it's effectively, we say it's like your own effective data center on AWS. So it's great for network segmentation. For each VPC, you can do things like VPN connections, manage VPN through our virtual private gateway. You can create NAT gateways. You define a CIDR range, so you sort of create the address space you'll be using. And then from in terms of how we're dealing with Juniper, sometimes there's a lot of benefits creating these VPCs, but then each VPC, because it is like it's your own data center, they are totally separate. So you'll need to figure out how you want to connect them. We have some options like VPC peering, but you may also want to use things like VPN and Internet Gateway to sort of create very scalable architectures like the transit VPC, which we'll talk about later. Going on from there, AWS Direct Connect is a very cool service. It allows you to connect your on-premises networks into AWS. So you may want to do this for lower latency, for security or privacy reasons if you don't want to send your traffic over the internet. You may want to do it for lower latency or predictable latency. As well, though, we're also seeing some folks move away from Direct Connect into sort of more of an SD-WAN sort of concept where they want, everything to go over the internet as well. And so everything goes to the VPN, everything's encrypted. So we see sort of a mix of those two things. As well, we also have elastic load balancing. This is a little bit self-explanatory. It's one of the core concepts of, especially when you get down to our scalability and availability, a lot of things are going to sort of hinge on our elastic load balancing product. On top of that, we also have Route 53, which are DNS. So this is great because it's a global concept. So it runs in all regions. So if you wanted to run something across multiple regions and do some sort of maybe failover between the East Coast and West Coast, or if you wanted to do private DNS settings within your own VPC, or if you wanted to integrate it back on premises, Route 53 is going to be a good place to start and take a look at there. So that's sort of a review of our native AWS networking, super fast, I'll admit. So if you take a look at what sort of stuff the partners that we work with extend on AWS, it's in these sort of key categories. So routing, with Juniper, that's the VMX. This allows you to do some more flexible things around routing. So I mentioned that with VPCs, you may have a lot of those. So for instance, if you want to create sort of centralized networking bottlenecks, so you can centralize your network configuration, that's a very common sort of architecture right now with our partners. VPN as well, since we do have a managed VPN offering, but a lot of customers want to get sort of a more flexible configuration. They may want to do client to site, they may want to do multiple VPNs, they may want to change the encryption parameters. So there's a lot of flexibility there. They may also want to integrate it back with their on-premises VPN sort of construct. Application delivery is important for things like load balancing, application acceleration, and whatnot, as well as firewalling. AWS offers security groups, so you can do stateful inspection at a sort of protocol level of IP, TCP, and UDP. But you may want to do more than that. You may want to do, advanced security features, and we'll talk a little bit about that further. And online, we've got Raj from Juniper, who's going to sort of go through their portfolio. You there, Raj?
Hey, I'm here, Nick. Thanks for the kickoff.
Great.
Making sure I can forward the slides. Okay, cool. So again, thanks, Nick, for the great kickoff. Thanks, everyone, for taking time today and joining this webinar. My name is Raj. I'm part of Solutions Marketing here at Juniper. And in next 10 minutes, I will provide you a quick overview on two of our virtual products, that is vSRX and VMX, which are available on Amazon Marketplace, followed by some of the deployment scenarios. And after that, I will hand it over to Manoj from Ellie Mae to walk us through his experience with going with Juniper and AWS. So to start with, every customer that I came across who's planning to migrate to cloud, the number one concern that they talk about is security. And from Juniper as well as Amazon perspective, it is our highest priority and truly job zero to assure that peace of mind to every customer. Amazon's best practices for security start with the shared security model as shown in this diagram. As per this model, AWS is responsible for hardware that they provide to host and connect your resources, while you as a customer is responsible for what kind of traffic is allowed to and from the internet. And this is where Juniper's virtual products provide the enhanced security as well as advanced routing to complement the native security provided by ACLs and security groups from AWS. So what exactly the vSRX and VMX bring to the table? The first one, our virtual SRX next-gen firewall vSRX, is industry's fastest firewall with less number of resources that provide higher throughput than any other firewall out there at the marketplace. vSRX also has all the next-gen firewall features like layer 4 to layer 7 security, IPsec connectivity, URL filtering, and advanced threat prevention. When it comes to Virtual MX, this is the platform of choice when you are looking for enhanced routing capabilities and features like MPLS, layer 3 VPN, and so on. So to summarize, if you are looking for enhanced security features, vSRX is your product of choice, and for advanced routing, the recommended platform would be VMX or Virtual MX. Now let's look at a couple of deployment scenarios. The first one I'm showing here is specifically for hybrid cloud, where customers are looking for advanced security. This is where you would go with the virtual SRX. As shown in this diagram, on left-hand side, you have an enterprise data center where a physical SRX platform is being used to provide the enhanced security. And then now if you want to extend your workload or migrate some of the applications to cloud, that's where you would go ahead and deploy virtual vSRX in Amazon Web Services or their remote data centers. By using the security director, your IT is very comfortable to use the unified policy, and by integrating that with vSRX, you can consistently push the same policy settings from your on-prem data center to all the remote workloads. Along with that, the solution is also integrated with our threat defense platform, which we call Sky ATP. And you will be rest assured that your network will be protected against with latest ransomwares like WannaCry and Loki. Moving on to the next use case. This is the use case where if our customers are using MX routers in your data centers, then they can use VMX to provide that same sort of secure connectivity along with the advanced routing and other additional features like MPLS and Layer 3 VPN. The enhanced routing stack provided by VMX, as Nick just said, makes it easy for inter-VPC communication. A lot of our customers are also using VMX products like a test as a service and building a test topology within cloud so that they can test out this topology in cloud, and then after validation, they can deploy it in a production network. Again, just to recap, one size doesn't fit all. So here at Juniper, we would like to provide options for enhanced security, go with Virtual SRX, and for advanced routing, go with Virtual MX platform. The third use case, this is the transit VPC scenario, which our customer Ellie Mae is currently using vSRX for, and Manoj will go a little bit detail about how they're using vSRX in this particular scenario. But from the concept perspective, transit VPC acts like a global transit hub, which basically allows you to connect multiple VPCs and takes away the basic requirement of full mesh connectivity when you have more than 2 VPCs. vSRX sitting within transit VPC provides that enhanced security I just talked about. And on top of that, vSRX also supports what we call virtual routing instances. So the scale limit is like 128, which is highest that you can find in any other firewall, which allows us to make it a very competitive offer when you want to connect multiple VPCs together. On top of that, this solution is fully automated, and we have the cloud formation template available on GitHub to download. So if you want to try out both this vSRX or VMX platforms, customers can have option of getting their own license, or they can go with marketplace and either try it out annual or hourly basis license. And both of them, we have the free trials available to try it out. To summarize, when it comes to overall management, unified management is one of the huge deal for IT. Being able to push and maintain consistent security across on-prem as well as the remote data center makes life totally easy for IT as well as the DevOps. Lesser resources requirement on vSRX directly translate the lower overall cost for AWS. And on top of that, Junos also has a lot of automation and DevOps kind of features. It makes it easy for deploying various automation and scripts using vSRX as the choice of platform. Finally, last but not least, AWS and Juniper can provide a better together solution to our customers, where customers can use shared security via security groups, ACLs, and VPC peering from AWS, as well as the enhanced security and routing from Juniper, along with solutions like Transit VPC and others. So with that, I will hand it over to Manoj to talk about the Ellie Mae use case and how Ellie Mae was able to use Juniper as well as Amazon to solve some of their challenges.
Hi everyone, this is Manoj Koshti. I'm sure you would be able to hear me. Let me take a look at the slides are moving. So hi, my name is Manoj Koshti and I work for Ellie Mae. So we are actually do a 30 to 40% US mortgage application for SaaS offering, SSS offering. Our customers are mostly all the major banks and lending firms. Here I'm actually going to describe how I did the benchmarking and testing validation of vSRX firewall and how we are going to use in the future as a transit VPC. I don't know how to move the slides.
Manoj, I'll move forward.
Yeah, now it's okay. So there was a question how what the reason we are choosing to go to now Amazon. The reason behind it providing the high elastic workload. As you know, the private clouds elastic workload takes time to build infrastructure. So AWS is the right choice to do elastic workload. We are actually a US-based focused company, and we do have a presence outside of the US. Not majority of them, but a little bit focused on the US base. We have a heavy backend management. Ellie Mae has a private data center which has a lot of infrastructure and a lot of application in the backend side. Can we move the slide?
So Manoj, can you talk a little bit more about the, overall why you chose AWS? You have these points. Can you share a little bit more with our audience?
Sure. I mean, we chose the AWS rather than other service provider because of how AWS innovations has been done, and it's a leading cloud offering than other services like Amazon, Azure, and Google, and all those things. It has a rapid scalability and global presence as also the major factor of that. Agility of the AWS is I found better than other cloud companies where CloudFormation and AWS Lambda. We are using heavily Lambda on our AWS cloud to manage the workload.
Sounds good.
You want to move the slide? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great point. So go ahead. You were saying to Rajesh something?
Yeah, I just wanted now. There was all the great inputs. Now let's moving on to how did you find Juniper? What was the value add? And in next couple of slides, if you can explain us why you selected Juniper Networks, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So we do have a Juniper presence in our private data center. So when we start pulling out the services and putting it in AWS cloud, so when we started doing provisioning of the VPCs, plumbing the VPN and all those things, right now those VPN has been configured on a Juniper infrastructure. And while doing the configuration, we had a lot of challenges between AWS configuration and Juniper configuration. So we had to customize a lot to build a standard configuration for the AWS, which can scale further, like hundreds of VPN tunnels. The choosing a Juniper because if I go with any of the vendor beside Juniper on the cloud side, I will have inconsistency in the hybrid cloud. So the policies which we have right now on the private cloud, we can import that same policies in the public cloud as well. So it gives a seamless integration in our private cloud as well. So you can build a hybrid cloud, in a very short time frame. The other advantage of same automation script, same automation form of concepts can be used in a private cloud and public cloud as well. So that's the biggest advantage. Why we went to the Juniper network. Next slide. So now if you think about security aspects, it takes longer than 1 day to build the secure connectivity and all those things coming from the AWS back to data center. But if you do automation using a CloudFormation and Lambda, we are using right now, I'm in the process of developing all the tools because the workflow what we have, we are changing some workflow what Juniper provided to us. That workflow integrate all the Lambda functions, configuration changes on the SRX firewall, input parameter changes, providing secure connectivity. So like in half an hour ago, I just tested another instant, like it took me like 15 to 20 minutes to bring a VPN tunnel from another account to this SRX firewall. And we created a simultaneously probably 6 tunnels at the same time within 15 to 30 minutes. So that's advantage of I get from Juniper devices. In addition to that, I do have a routing of functions also and the firewall function as well on the same device. That's another advantage of that. And then I do have a lot of routing instances running on the Juniper devices, which give a flexibility in segmentations. So I can use the same IP address in different VPCs as well.
So this is great, Manoj. I mean, going back from two days to 20 minutes is a huge saving, and appreciate sharing that with our audience.
Definitely. So last and why, we are a Juniper customer a while back. I joined this company last year, and then we had a different vendor, and based on the functions and feature what we use on a security perspective and routing perspective, we moved to Juniper infrastructure. We moved to the Juniper infrastructure where we provide secure connectivity to the data centers and across the WAN network as well. And going to the AWS and Juniper provide a consistency on OS perspective, management perspective as well, and vendor, a configuration operation perspective as well. Can we move the slide?
Sure, Manoj, this is great.
So some questions were there. AWS provide what exactly for us? It provide a rapid scalability of elastic workload, global presence predicted to serve clientless, greater business agility to keep pace with the demand. So the demand is grown. Demand is basically driven by our workload issues, and in addition to that, customer demands. Customer demands more seats, so we have to make the agile and faster. Pull the host and pull the application faster than what we expect in the private cloud. So that's the reason why we went to the AWS. Similar things at Juniper, as I spoke earlier, it provided consistency across the security aspects, what we use in the private data center, and we'll have the same functions, same features, same firewall rules, same routing concepts go into the AWS as well. So it simplified the backend management. Rajesh, can we move the slide? I'm not able to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Manoj. Thanks, thanks for all the great inputs. I think we are pretty much back to NICU about, we can take Q&As at this point of time.
Cool. Yeah, so we had a couple questions come in. So there was one question about, so I know there's the WannaCry and ransomware stuff's pretty top of mind right now. So how exactly would this help with the ransomware attack?
So, Nick, I'll take that. This is Raj from Juniper. And as I was showing in that previous deployment scenario where we have SkyATP threat prevention platform integrated as part of the solution, we have already proved that, and we have the blogs and all the documentation to show that attacks like WannaCry, Locky, SkyATP would be able to prevent that as part of the solution.
Okay, very cool. And folks, if you have questions, there's a little question panel in the bottom right. Feel free to put it in there. We'll just sort of go through some questions for a little bit to help out and give you a little more detail. So there was another question about transit VPC. Would you mind sort of explaining a little bit of what you guys did there and what's sort of the core use case and where people can get some more information on it?
Rajesh, sure, you want to take the lead? You want to take the lead?
I mean, yeah, go ahead. I can just jump into that.
Yeah, definitely. So transit VPC concepts is pretty much applicable if you're thinking about deploying a multi-tenancy data center in a private cloud. When you deploy a multi-tenancy in a private cloud, you have application A, or you can say business unit A and business unit B and business unit C. They have the same infrastructure, but they are siloed in a different bucket. Now this siloed has to have a connectivity each other, right? How do you provide this connectivity? You can backhaul the traffic to the data center and do the hairpin, or you can build the transit VPC on the AWS cloud and then hairpin the AWS itself. So why do you want to traffic come from the AWS back to your data center to do hairpin? When you have a capability to deploy some feature appliance back to an AWS cloud to do hairpinning inside the AWS cloud. So that's advantage of transit VPC. That's where the concepts comes. And there are more than that advantage. Like in the security aspects, if you want to do a policy scanning, or if you want to do a scan and all those things, and host other features, you have to deploy that scanners and other features inside each VPCs. Each VPCs, right? It's a more manageable issues. Now we're going in the back, like if you do a private data center, you have a scanner talk to multi-tenancy from one scanner infrastructure rather than multi-scanning infrastructure. So thanks, Rajesh.
Yep.
Cool. There was a question that came in. It said, to protect public-facing web servers that have elastic IP addresses, how do you recommend deploying the SRX so it can expect all traffic before it hits all the servers inbound?
So we're just answering on the chat window, but I can just quickly talk about that. I mean, vSRX can be installed behind the internet gateway that AWS has to protect these web servers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
and we also have a solution brief that actually explains this use case, so we'll be happy to share that collateral.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I've seen a lot of people do in that scenario is they put the elastic IP addresses effectively on the firewall, and then the firewall just simply does a NAT to the inbound web server. And part of the way that the AWS works in that way is that when you put the elastic IP address that's sort of meant for the server on the firewall, the traffic that actually arrives on the firewall will have a private address. So you end up basically natting from a private address to another private address. So it seems a little bit weird because you're natting from a private address to a public address, but the function actually is not any different than if you do it on-premise where you instead do a public address to private address. So it's a little bit different. Effectively works the same. One thing you would want to look at is how many IP addresses you can put on your firewall. So sort of make sure that you have enough. You can put 30 IP addresses on any given interface. So just make sure that when you look at those applications that you've got enough sort of IP addresses per application on the back end. And then the question was, where are the CloudFormation scripts at? Raj, where are those at?
Yeah, those are right now, Nick, the CloudFormation scripts are located on the GitHub, and after the webinar, we'll send the link along with the case study to download those templates.
Okay, cool. So one of the question was, one of the benefits of AWS is that you only pay for what you use, but the SRX is going to be running all the time. So do you get that benefit on AWS? Raj, I'll let you get first shot at that one, and I can sort of give another opinion.
So I think the question was about pay-as-you-go versus vSRX running all the time, correct?
Yeah, they say that one of the benefits is pay-as-you-go. So how do you get? Does that benefit extend to the SRX on AWS?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I've seen with other folks as well is that you can build an architecture actually where you put an elastic load balancer basically in front of the vSRX, and you can actually have the vSRX sort of scale up and down based upon the bandwidth that comes in. I think it's still an architecture we're working with these guys on to fully support and whatnot. But it is something we can do in AWS in terms of auto scaling. So we can actually make some of the infrastructure security, like a firewall or a router, actually scale up and down as well. So you don't have to build out like the entire infrastructure up front. You can sort of let it adapt to what your inbound requests come into, which really helps actually when you scale outward. So you don't have to buy like the biggest, baddest box that exists, as opposed to you could just have sort of a set of smaller boxes. But it really depends on how you do the routing and the VPN and whatnot. So the question was, there's a CSR on AWS, and it's great to have another option. Can the vSRX combine dynamic routing features like BGP as well as the full VPN suite for an enterprise, LAN-to-LAN and remote access VPN?
Yes, that's right, and that's one of the reasons that Ellie Mae is actually using vSRX, because it also has the full writing capabilities along with the protocols like BGP, and all the advanced security features.
Yeah, that's right. This is Manoj. Yeah, so we are using it for the BGP routing protocol and full VPN functions, and even we are using a generic policies And that capability I don't find in a CSR, Cisco CSR.
Okay. So another question, where is the vSRX on AWS and how do they activate it?
That should be a question for Rajesh.
So that's the, Nick, if I understood correctly, the question was about where to get the vSRX. Is that right?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, it's there on the marketplace. You know, I mean, customers who are already, if they already have the vSRX license, they can take that license and bring a vSRX instance on EC2. Or if they want to download from the marketplace, we have both the options, hourly as well as the yearly subscription.
I mean, generally, if you just do a search for like Juniper or AWS
Marketplace,
you'll find all the sort of products there.
And we just posted the link on a chat window where to download that.
Cool. Then here's a question that came in. Don't know if you want to answer competitive questions on this or not, but there was a question if you wanted to compare the CSR compared to the vSRX or VMX.
We have that internally, and yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I would just say reach out to.
Yeah,
reach out to Rajesh's emails up here on the up here, and he can sort of work through that with you and figure out what your requirements are and see what works for you. Here's another question for you. The vSRX, does it work with the EX4300 boxes?
And I don't know the question here, but definitely we have the security vision, what we call software-defined secure network. As part of the software-defined secure network, we can push the policies from vSRX down to our EX line of switches. So yes, they can work together as part of that ecosystem.
Let's see here. There's one question that says, could you tell that this is the first line of defense? So I guess the question is, would you be able to detect whether or not this is actually sitting on the edge of your network or not? Let's see here. So let's see here. Here's one for you. So how does Juniper suggest dealing with AWS ACLs so that you don't cause troubleshooting ACL issues between AWS and the vSRX? Is your suggestion to forego AWS ACLs and let the vSRX do it all? Or is there anything on the roadmap where the vSRX would synchronize with AWS ACLs? And I assume security groups as well as part of probably that question.
I think this should be for the Rajesh. I can give my inputs as well later on.
Yeah, I think, on a high level, we allow from the AWS ACLs, we allow the traffic to come in through and then hit our virtual firewall and put the policies and all the enhanced logic there on the firewall itself. And Manish, feel free to add on to.
Yeah, I think that's true what Rajesh was saying. I mean, if you do multiple security endpoints, you make one as a relax, one will be flexible and then put all the firewall policies somewhere else, like a centralized policy, which will be a vSRX firewalls.
Yeah, what I've seen in my experience is that network ACLs can go a few different ways. For groups that don't do a lot of network ACLs, I don't like to use them as one-offs because they tend to be easily forgotten. Since people are sort of used to checking routing tables and security groups to determine whether or not traffic is allowed or not. So if you end up putting in some sort of one-off network ACL rules, maybe because you need to blacklist something or maybe because you only want to allow or deny a specific port across a large group of instances. So I try not to use them as one-offs. If you fully operationalize them and you know that you use them widely and that your sort of public and private subnets have a sort of base network ACL that's used everywhere, I think that's great. In terms of interacting with a product like the vSRX, I think it's it's fairly challenging because then you have to check 2 different places for your rules. And considering that vSRX is more powerful than a network ACL, I would question sort of that. I mean, I can see some folks that want to be sort of double sure that in case the vSRX has a rule change that you have sort of a safety net. But I would have to probably question the value of that, and you probably want to test to see if that actually happens in your environment or not before going and sort of doing any efforts.
There was one more question, Nick.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Adarsh. Yeah, there was one more question from Adarsh. I think we replied, but just want to clarify. Adarsh is asking about software compatibility, or how does the VMX platform is different from the physical products that we have. And his question is about more like, is this the PTX software that is available on AWS instances? So just want to clarify, it's not the PTX, but it's our MX router. When it this feature and functionality that you have it on the physical MX router is available in a virtual form factor as a virtual MX or VMX, not the PTX. And same goes true for the physical SRX routers feature, SRX firewall. They are available in virtual form factor as a VM like a vSRX.
Okay, cool. So one of the questions is, someone wasn't clear about the physical appliance availability on AWS. Is there a PTX 5000?
Yeah, that's what I just answered, Nick.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, basically, for the most part, if you're curious about the availability of an instance on AWS, you can go to the marketplace and search for it there. And if it is there, great. If it's not there, sometimes there's some private listings of certain products, sometimes before they sort of become generally available. But typically, you can just search on Marketplace as well if you want to find out if a certain thing is on AWS or not. Another question was, does this solution offer an analytics and forensics information?
So not the solution, not this particular solution, but we have a product called Aformix that offers the analytics, but not with vSRX and VMX.
Okay, cool. All right, folks. Well, if you guys have questions, get them in shortly, because it looks like we've gotten the questions in so far. Here we go. I was waiting for this one. So, so does vSRX support HA within a VPC? If so, how does it work with AWS route tables?
So the HA support is coming up in our Q4 release. We have the VMX support of HA available, but not on vSRX as of now. So that functionality is coming up.
Okay, and what does that do? That moves a network interface in between boxes, or does it make a route change, or how does that work?
This is basically you have the be able to synchronize the session tables between two virtual instances sitting in two different VPCs.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think that's what we've got for questions here. So, Raj, Manoj, thanks a lot for doing this. You guys have any sort of parting words or anything?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to both Nick and Manoj for giving us an opportunity, and thanks to the audience for all these great questions. It was a great experience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great. Yeah, we're going to wrap here. Thanks everyone for joining. When you leave, there will be a little pop-up for some questions. If you can't fill it out, we really use the feedback. So, thank you everybody, and we'll see you later.